My beloved child. You have spent so much time asking me for another sign that you almost missed the one already standing quietly in front of you. You kept looking toward tomorrow, believing the answer would arrive in some extraordinary moment. You imagined that when I finally spoke, every question would disappear at once. You expected my voice to sound like thunder, to interrupt your plans, to remove every uncertainty in a single instant. But that is not how I have always chosen to speak. Before you ask me for another answer, I want to ask you something. What if the most important thing I have ever said to you was never hidden? What if it was heard, but never truly understood? Sit with that question for a moment. Because until your heart becomes willing to hear differently, even the clearest truth can sound like silence. You have prayed, Lord, where are you? You have wondered why the heavens seemed quiet while your heart carried questions no one else could answer. You watched doors remain closed. You watched opportunities disappear. You watched people walk away without explaining why. And somewhere inside, you quietly reached a conclusion you never intended to believe. You wondered if I had stopped speaking. Yet every time that thought entered your mind, I was already working in places your eyes could not reach. Think about a seed buried beneath the soil. From above, nothing appears to be happening. The ground looks unchanged. The silence feels complete. But underneath that silence, life is already moving. Roots are stretching into places no one can see. Strength is developing before beauty ever appears. If someone judged the seed only by what was visible, they would believe nothing was happening at all. Yet the hidden work is exactly what makes the future possible. My child, many seasons of your life have looked exactly like that seed. You called them empty. I called them preparation. You called them delays. I called them protection. You called them silence. I called them instruction. There is a difference between my absence and my hidden work. Never confuse the two. Remember when Elijah expected me to appear through wind, earthquake, and fire? Yet my voice came as a gentle whisper. Not because I lacked power, but because hearts often hear truth most clearly when they become still. You have been searching for dramatic moments while quietly overlooking the ordinary places where I have been meeting you every day. The peace that arrived without explanation. The unexpected strength that carried you through another difficult morning. The conversation that encouraged you when you were ready to give up. The door that remained closed even though you begged for it to open. Those were not random moments. They were pieces of a conversation I have been having with you all along. You simply expected a different language. Sometimes my answer is not another opportunity. Sometimes my answer is the wisdom to release one. Sometimes my answer is not immediate success. Sometimes my answer is the character that success requires before it arrives. You have measured my love by visible results. But I measure my love by what I am building inside you. Anyone can celebrate when blessings become obvious. Few people notice the quiet miracles happening long before anyone applauds them. That is where your faith has been growing. Not in the moments when everything made sense, but in the moments when trusting me required more courage than understanding everything yourself. There is something you have never fully realized. Every unanswered question has been shaping the kind of person you are becoming. Every disappointment has been teaching you to seek my heart instead of temporary comfort. Every delay has been inviting you to discover that my timing is never careless. You thought you were waiting for me to speak. But often, I was waiting for you to become quiet enough to recognize the words I had already placed inside your heart. That is why today's message matters. Because before you continue asking for another sign, before you continue believing heaven has remained silent, I want you to hear the truth you almost overlooked. The most important part of my message was never about changing your circumstances first. It was about changing the way you see them. When your vision changes, your understanding begins to change. And when your understanding changes, your entire journey begins to look different. There is still something you have not fully heard. Not because I refuse to say it, but because your heart has been carrying a fear so loud that it has been speaking over my whisper. Today, that fear begins to lose its voice. The fear that has followed you for so long did not appear overnight. It grew quietly. One disappointment convinced you to expect another. One unanswered prayer made the next prayer feel a little heavier. One closed door caused you to question whether any door would ever open again. Without realizing it, you began listening to your past more carefully than you listened to me. That is what fear does. It gathers yesterday's pain and tries to use it as proof that tomorrow cannot be different. But fear has never been a trustworthy teacher. It only repeats what it already knows. I am not limited by what fear remembers. I am the one who brings life where others only see endings. Look back for a moment, not to relive your pain, but to remember my faithfulness. There were seasons you believed would break you forever. Yet here you are. There were nights you thought you would never survive. Yet I carried you through them one breath at a time. There were burdens you believed were too heavy for your shoulders. Yet somehow, strength arrived exactly when you needed it. Did you think that strength came from nowhere? No, my child. I was already holding you before you realized you needed to be held. Many of my greatest works in your life have happened so quietly that you mistook them for ordinary days. You expected miracles to interrupt your life. Sometimes my miracles are the reason your life was not interrupted. There are dangers you never saw because I quietly redirected your steps. There are conversations that never happened because I protected your heart from words that would have wounded you. There are opportunities you mourned losing that would have slowly stolen your peace. You called those moments disappointments. From where I stood, they were acts of mercy. One day, when you can see more clearly than you do now, you will realize that not every unanswered prayer was a rejection. Some were invitations to trust me beyond your own understanding. You have often asked, Lord, why didn't you show me everything? Because if I revealed every detail before you were ready, you would depend on information instead of faith. Faith is not walking because every question has been answered. Faith is taking the next faithful step because you trust the one walking beside you. That has always been my invitation to you. Not perfect certainty. Perfect dependence. You have spent so much energy trying to predict the future that you have overlooked the grace I placed in today. This moment. This breath. This opportunity to know me more deeply than yesterday. Do not rush past what I am teaching you now simply because you are eager to arrive somewhere else. The tree does not apologize for growing slowly. The river does not hurry because the ocean is waiting. Everything I created understands that healthy growth cannot be forced. Why should your soul be any different? I am far more interested in forming your heart than simply changing your circumstances. Circumstances come and go. A transformed heart remains. That is why I have been doing a quieter work than you expected. I have been teaching you patience that does not depend on perfect conditions. Peace that does not disappear when plans change. Hope that survives difficult seasons. Kindness that continues even when it is not returned. These gifts are not small. They are treasures that no disappointment can take away. Perhaps you have been asking me to remove every storm. Instead, I have been teaching you how to keep your eyes on me while the wind still blows. Because storms eventually pass. But the person you become while walking through them stays with you. Never believe your difficult season has been wasted. Every tear I have seen. Every prayer I have heard. Every moment you chose kindness when bitterness felt easier. Every act of faith that no one else noticed. None of it has been forgotten. Heaven does not measure your life the way the world does. The world celebrates what is visible. I delight in the quiet faithfulness no one applauds. The choice to forgive. The decision to keep praying. The courage to love even after disappointment. The humility to keep trusting when you cannot see the whole picture. Those are victories greater than you know. And there is one more truth your heart needs to hear before we go further. The answer you have been searching for has never been only about what I will do for you. It has always been about who you are becoming with me. Because when your identity is rooted in my love instead of changing circumstances, fear loses the authority it once claimed. That is where true freedom begins. And there is something even deeper I have been preparing to reveal, a truth that has been quietly shaping your life long before you ever recognized my hand in it. Long before you recognized my hand, I was already shaping your path. You have often imagined that I began working only after you prayed the right prayer or found the right words. But my care for you did not begin the moment you called upon me. It began long before you understood how deeply you were loved. Even when your attention wandered, mine never did. Even when your faith felt small, my faithfulness remained complete. There were seasons when you believed you had fallen behind everyone else. You watched other people celebrate milestones while you quietly questioned your own journey. You compared your unfinished chapter to someone else's visible success, and your heart became weary. But comparison has always hidden the truth from you. You can only see a few pages of another person's story. I alone see the entire book. What looks like delay in one chapter may become the reason another chapter overflows with wisdom, compassion, and lasting peace. Do not assume that someone who arrived sooner arrived better. Many people reach places they are not prepared to remain. I have never wanted to give you something that would become a burden because your character had not yet grown strong enough to carry it. That is why I have been building you from the inside before changing what is around you. The world often focuses on appearances. I begin with the heart. A strong foundation is rarely admired while it is being built because most of it remains hidden beneath the surface. Yet when the storms arrive, everyone discovers which house was built on solid ground. I have been strengthening your foundation. Every lesson you struggled to understand. Every disappointment that taught you compassion. Every moment when you chose forgiveness instead of resentment. Those were not interruptions to your journey. They were your journey. Perhaps you have asked why I did not remove every difficult person from your path. Because some people revealed strengths inside you that comfort never could. Patience became real when it was tested. Grace became meaningful when it was difficult to give. Wisdom grew every time you learned to pause before reacting. These gifts were never created in perfect circumstances. They were formed in ordinary moments where you quietly chose my way instead of your own. That is why I tell you not to despise small beginnings. The smallest act of obedience often becomes the beginning of the greatest transformation. A gentle word. An honest apology. A quiet prayer. A decision to trust me one more day. The world may overlook these moments, but heaven never does. You have wondered whether your life truly matters. Hear me clearly. Nothing done with love is ever insignificant in my kingdom. A kind word spoken to someone who felt invisible. A helping hand offered without expecting recognition. A prayer whispered for another person when no one knew you were praying. These moments echo far beyond what your eyes can see. Never underestimate what I can do through a heart that remains available to me. Sometimes you have asked me to show you the entire staircase before taking the first step. But I have gently placed enough light before you for today's step. Tomorrow's light will arrive with tomorrow's grace. You do not need tomorrow's strength to obey me today. You only need today's faith. Do not carry burdens that belong to days you have not yet lived. I am already present in the tomorrows that worry you. Just as I have been faithful in your yesterday, I will remain faithful in the days ahead. So release the weight of trying to control every outcome. You were never asked to carry the future on your shoulders. That place has always belonged to me. There is a quiet freedom that comes when you finally understand this. Peace is not found in knowing everything that will happen next. Peace is found in knowing the one who walks with you no matter what happens next. That peace has been waiting for you all along. Not at the end of your journey, but in the middle of it. Not after every answer arrives, but while you are still learning to trust. My child, the most important part of my message was never hidden because I wanted to keep it from you. It was hidden beneath the noise of fear, disappointment, and endless striving. Now that those voices are growing quieter, you are finally beginning to hear what I have been saying from the very beginning. You have never walked alone. Not for a single moment. And what I am about to reveal next will change the way you remember every season you once believed had been wasted. What if the seasons you have tried so hard to forget are the very seasons that will one day fill your heart with gratitude? I know that question feels difficult. There are memories you would gladly erase if you could. Moments that still ache when they return without warning. Prayers that seem to disappear into silence. Goodbyes you never wanted to say. Dreams that ended before they ever had the chance to begin. I saw every one of those moments. Not from a distance, but beside you. When you cried where no one else could see, I was there. When you smiled to hide your pain, I knew what your heart was carrying. When you wondered if anyone truly understood, I understood completely. Never believe your suffering went unnoticed. Every tear mattered to me. Not because I delight in your pain, but because I delight in staying near those whose hearts feel heavy. There is something you have not considered. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not escaping a difficult season. Sometimes the greatest miracle is discovering that the difficult season did not steal the person I created you to become. Look at your heart now. You are wiser than you once were. You listen more carefully than before. You notice the hurting people others often overlook. You have learned that kindness is strongest when it costs something. You have discovered that compassion grows most beautifully in hearts that have known disappointment. Those changes did not happen by accident. They were formed one faithful step at a time. You have asked me to make your life easier. But my greater desire has been to make your life fruitful. Ease may last for a moment. Fruit remains long after the season has changed. That is why love, patience, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, and peace are treasures no circumstance can truly take from you. The world spends much of its time chasing what disappears. I invite you to build your life upon what endures. Do not allow temporary disappointments to define your eternal identity. You are not the sum of your failures. You are not permanently marked by the opinions of people who misunderstood you. You are not forgotten because someone overlooked your worth. Your identity has never depended upon human approval. It has always rested in my unfailing love. The moment you begin believing that truth, chains you have carried for years begin to loosen. You no longer need to prove your value to everyone around you. You no longer need every unanswered question to receive an immediate explanation. You no longer need to fear that one mistake has permanently ruined your future. Grace is greater than your worst day. Mercy is stronger than your deepest regret. Hope is never exhausted in my presence. Even now, I am inviting you to release something you have held too tightly. Release the belief that every painful chapter was meaningless. Release the habit of measuring my faithfulness only by visible success. Release the burden of trying to understand every detail before you choose to trust me. You do not have to carry all of that anymore. Lay it before me. Not because you are weak, but because you were never created to carry those burdens alone. I have always been your refuge before I became your answer. I have always been your shepherd before I became your provider. I have always been your father before I became the one who opened doors. Do not seek my gifts more than you seek my presence. Because my presence will sustain you even during seasons when the gifts have not yet arrived. And when you discover that my presence is enough, you will experience a freedom the world cannot manufacture. The circumstances around you may continue changing. People may come and go. Plans may succeed or fail. Unexpected seasons may still arrive. But there is one truth that will remain unshaken. I will never stop walking with you. Not when your faith feels strong. Not when your faith feels fragile. Not when you understand. Not when you still have questions. Nothing you have faced has changed my love for you. Nothing you will face tomorrow will surprise me. I was with you in yesterday's uncertainty. I am with you in today's journey. And I will already be waiting in tomorrow's unknown. So lift your eyes. Not because every problem has disappeared, but because you no longer face them by yourself. There is only one final truth I want to place deep within your heart. When you finally hear that truth completely, you will understand why the most important part of my message was never missing. It was patiently waiting for the moment your heart was ready to receive it. And now, my beloved child, hear the truth your heart has been searching for. The most important part of my message was never hidden. It was simply waiting for the moment you were ready to hear it. I have never stopped being with you. Not in your waiting. Not in your questions. Not in your disappointments. Not even in the moments you believed heaven had become silent. My presence has never depended on what you could see. It has always surrounded you, quietly guiding, protecting, and strengthening you one step at a time. So stop believing that silence means abandonment. Sometimes my quietest moments are where my deepest work begins. Walk forward without fear. Trust me one step at a time. You do not need every answer today, you only need to know that I am already with you in tomorrow. Whenever doubt whispers that you are alone, remember this. The most important part was never another sign. The most important part was that I never left your side. May my peace guard your heart today and always. Amen.